Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
All right, it is 11:01 on Edmonton Sports Talk. It is The Lock Shop. Oh, Oilers fans probably aren't going to like that. I know some of them really like this. Scott LaChance, prospect of the Edmonton Oilers, is being moved to the New Jersey Devils to facilitate a trade between the Bruins and the Oilers. All right, so this is going down as we speak. Trent Frederic will be traded to Edmonton. New Jersey will be involved. And Scott LaChance, the captain of the University of Boston, I believe, is on the move to New Jersey to facilitate, I'm assuming, keep some of the cap of Frederic. The boys will pass along whatever else we get. You can obviously hit us up in the nasty chat as well. If you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart, you can text us anytime, 780-218-9999. Trent Frederic, who apparently is becoming an Edmonton Oiler here so far this season, 57 games, 8 goals, 7 assists, 15 points, 44 PIMs, and he's a minus 14 so far this season on the Boston Bruins. Frank Cervalli saying the Oilers are also getting in on Max Jones right now. Max Jones, once a first-round pick back in 2016 of the Anaheim Ducks, never really overly panned out in the National Hockey League and finds himself in the American Hockey League right now, I believe, with 21 points in 38 games in the AHL. But he is a big body, always was 6'3", 216. What do you got here? Sounds like okay. All right, so Hernan's telling me that the Devils are retaining 50% of Trent Frederic's salary. He's 27 years old. He will be a UFA at the end of the season. So at this point, I guess we view him as a rental. But let's just dive in, because I was looking at this morning. Trent Frederic was a guy I looked at this morning, possibly somehow getting off the Evander Kane contract. But Trent Frederic, I'm just checking in here on Puckpedia. I don't know if they would have already moved him over. No, here he is. So he's 2.3. So the Devils are getting LaChance to take 1.15. So he'll come in at a $150,000 cap hit, I believe. All right, so that's the latest there. 780-218-9999. We still don't know everything that is going to Boston. What we know is the Oilers are sending their prospect Shane LaChance to New Jersey to retain 50% on Frederic. They get Frederic at just over $1 million. I had exchanged some messages earlier today with Hart at Puckpedia, and we're going to bring Hussey right away as well. Because who's that? Max Warner in this deal for Frederic? All right. Okay. Well, let me just quickly get this trade out, and then we'll bring in Hussey. We can get his thoughts on some of this stuff moving with the Oilers right now, because I think a lot of fans liked Max Warner. A couple of their better prospects on the move here today. Let's bring in Huss right now as I track this down. It is the Lock Shop. We're going to get to our best bets. Huss, what's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
Not much. A little action heading into the Lock Shop.
Little action for the Lock Shop today here with the Oilers. And let's see here. I'm going to just try to get the full deal. Here we are. All right, so the Oilers acquire Frederic Jones, Max Jones, and Peter Hauser. All right, so 3 trades. This is interesting. They actually lay them out. Oh, there we go. Thank you very much, Reed. Yep, perfect. All right, so trade number 1, the Bruins trade Trent Frederic, 50% salary retained to the New Jersey Devils in exchange for unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser. Jersey then trades Trent Frederic to Edmonton in exchange for unsigned draft choice Shane LaChance. Boston trades Max Jones and unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser to Edmonton in exchange for Max Warner and St. Louis' second-round pick in 2025. All right, so the Oilers are giving up Shane LaChance, Max Warner, and a second to get Max Jones, who's in the American League, Trent Frederic, and unsigned draft choice Peter Hauser. So Aiden O'Neill over in the NASA Jet says, Max Warner, damn. And Bronco Nick says, so Edmonton still has $4 million in cap space. That's only if Kane is on the LTIR. If they don't, then I exchanged messages with Hart over at Puckpedia today. I said, tell me what's going on with this Kane LTIRs. If Kane is not on the LTIR, the Oilers have a few $100,000 in cap space, and that's it. As he described it to me on the DM, basically nothing. Huss, this is a nice little pre-deadline rush here right now, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And it wasn't just, oh, they're acquiring this guy for a pick. I mean, when you need to get a sheet handed to you live on the air.
I know. That's kind of neat, right?
3 separate deals. It's kind of funny that you guys are getting Trent Frederic. I have I hate that guy. Now that being said,
what does that stem from? Is there a specific incident?
Yes, the Jets were embarrassing the Bruins this year, 8-1, and he thought he'd be a tough guy, and went after David Gustafsson. He of 0 professional fights, knocked him out with 1 punch, and I thought that was a bit of a chicken bleep move to go after a guy like that if you want to scrap. But like, he's not a heavyweight, but he is tough, and he certainly is one of those aggressive.
He's a gamer,
forward.
Right? He's a gamer.
He's a gamer. He's a gamer. Like, he's a guy you'd love to have on your team. I just have beef with him from how he reacted to being embarrassed by the Jets earlier this season. But listen, I mean, we said it afterwards, and we talked about him for a while on the program, that this is a guy that, you know, going into a playoff situation, a guy you probably like to have playing on your team in the bottom 6. And I mean, the Oilers seem to add so many quote unquote veteran playoff guys in the offseason. It's kind of funny that they're looking for some younger players with a little more energy in it to right now. I mean, like, even before this, your conversations, like, what were the Oilers' needs? Like, what were the things that the Oilers were looking to, like,
essentially Holloway and Broberg. They're looking for forwards with size and speed, and a defenseman that can play both sides, which perfectly describes those two guys. But the veteran guys that they've brought in here, Huss, Jeff Skinner's never played in a playoff game, and he's going to be healthy scratched again tonight.
He might not.
Yeah, well, and Victor Arvidsson, Adam Henrique both have no movement clauses for their deals. So, like, they really don't have anybody that they can just straight up move. Like, they have 7 forwards with no movement clauses and 2 with limited no trades. Of their 12 forwards, 9 of them have some sort of trade protection. So this was the type of deal that they were going to have to do to get Trent Frederic.
Usually for the Canadian teams, the trade, the no move clause is impactful because it's the players that have the Canadian cities on their no move. Not that every single guy you sign, you gave a no move to. Did I read that correctly, that the Arvidsson one sort of came out of the blue? Like, that wasn't really reported and nobody
it popped up yesterday. And actually, that's something I asked Hart from Puckpedia about as well. I said, how often have you had no movement clauses just come out of the woodwork like yesterday? Because 2 of them popped up, Henrique and Arvidsson. And he said it's rare. It could normally just happen with the July 1st signing. Normally I'd get the contract details, but on July 1, they just sort of distribute all the details out in one sort of big package. And those contracts that he was sent as part of the big package, and I guess everybody would have got, didn't have the clauses on it. So that's why they missed it. Like, usually he'll reach out to somebody directly and get it, but when there's so many contracts coming in, they just send a big sort of dump to him, and it wasn't in there. Neither of those no movements were in there. So that was his explanation on it. So, so we'll see. We'll see how it works out. I mean, the way you described Frederic, the way we've heard, I mean, he's -14 this year, but the Bruins aren't having a good season. but the way that you described him, he sounds like what they're missing in their bottom six, buddy.
Well, I mean, and listen, like, yeah, this has been a down year for the Bruins. It's been a down year for Frederic. But I mean, the last 2 seasons, he scored 17 and 18 goals. He had 40 points last year. And a guy that'll have, I mean, in today's NHL, a significant amount of penalty minutes. I mean, 44 this year, 69 last year. I mean, right, like in today's NHL, you rarely see guys touch triple digits. So I mean, he's certainly a guy that mixes it up. Again, he's no heavyweight. He'd be more a middleweight, but not afraid to drop the gloves. Not that there's a ton of that in the playoffs, but he certainly does have an edge to his game. He can skate, he can forecheck, and he's a nice little addition. Here's the thing: so no one is coming off the roster to make this deal. Now, I guess with the deal made today, is Savoy still on the roster?
Savoy is playing tonight, so. And Max Jones has been an American League guy, so I'm not sure. I mean, maybe Savoy goes down and then, well, no, I guess Savoy will go down to make room for Frederic. Basically, that's probably
like that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. where, when you look at the Oilers right now, you're adding Trent Frederic. Like you can't expand the rosters until the trade deadline. So as of today, if he's on it, I would imagine there'd be a corresponding move. That might mean Savoy's not in the lineup tonight. I guess. I mean, I'm just spitballing here.
Well, yeah, but Frederic, I think, he's injured right now. So I'm not sure if his.
Oh, if he's on the IR, then that.
Yeah, but no, like he wasn't on the IR in Boston. So I don't know his current status on that. Like I'm just looking right now. I don't see him on the IR in Boston at the time. So I'm sure somebody will fill us in on that. And if you do, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is now like obviously Evander's out right now.
Yeah.
Nurse is out right now.
Nurse is going to play tonight.
Line.
He's good to go. Nurse is going to go. Okay. He's going to go tonight.
So I'm just pulling up the lines, and you've got Nuge, McDavid, Hyman, Arvidsson, Draisaitl, and Savoy. Janmark, Henrique, Brown, Podkolzin, Kapanen, Corey Perry. Like, is Savoy sticking around and going to play for a while? Do we think, or is he the guy?
He was healthy the last couple of games. So I've liked him. I mean, I've liked what I've seen. I think he's a more impactful player than pretty much every guy you mentioned in the bottom six. But I could see him going back to the American League here for at least a little bit until maybe you go Black Aces time in the playoffs.
Jeff Skinner may never play a playoff game in the NHL.
I mean, he might not. He scores and gets scratched the next game. It's happened twice this season. So he's, Raider Jesse says Frederic is out for a couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Easy says this mean another move is coming. I don't know. I don't think we should read too much into other moves coming off of this one. The Oilers had a couple of needs. Okay, a defenseman, a 4/5 defenseman. In a perfect world, maybe could play with Darnell Nurse. If not, can play left side on your third pair so that Kulak can play with Darnell Nurse. A bottom six forward with some grit. That's what they just got. And then, some people would like to see a top six forward as well. And that's either going to be Evander Kane when he's healthy, or if they can actually, keep him on the LTIR for the rest of the year, maybe they can use that money as well. So it's like there was, and other people would say toss goaltending in the mix as well. But I would say, I thought the two reasonable gets that this team had to deliver before the deadline were a bottom six forward with grit. They did that. And now you got to find a defenseman, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there.
If Frederic comes in and plays it, like, I mean, you'd know better than me as far as, how, if they want to keep Janmark, Henrique, and Connor Brown together. But assuming that he is in the lineup, like a Frederic Corey Perry combo on a fourth line would be a real pain in the ass for other teams. And I don't know whether Kapanen stays in or Podkolzin goes out. I mean, Podkolzin's been all the way up on the top line in the past week too. So, I mean, you would know better as to where he fits. But like, I think if they're making this move ahead of the deadline, it's pretty clear that he was a guy that they targeted, that they wanted to get in. And there is a pretty clear spot for him right now. And I do wonder who's out. But I mean, for a guy like Skinner, who's already healthy today before this trade, it does make it a little bit more of an uphill climb to get into the lineup. And I guess it just really depends on, I mean, obviously Skinner could go into a Savoy role, but I mean, if they like what the young guy's bringing and all of a sudden he's got a spot on the roster and you're bringing in Trent Frederic, there could be a veteran or two that has to sit out and watch from the press box.
Here's an interesting note. Chris Johnston, who we have on Fridays on the Nielsen Show, tweeting 3 minutes ago. Guys, an interesting wrinkle to the Oilers' acquisition of Trent Frederic. At this point, there's no indication if he'll be healthy enough to play before the playoffs. So there's a chance that he can remain on the LTIR for the balance of the regular season. So they've acquired Frederic, might not get him until the playoffs. So we'll see how that plays out as well. So exciting though. Exciting. And Jake Evans signs an extension. Was Jake Evans on the radar in Winnipeg? You guys got a lot of those guys, right? Or was there?
He was on Shifley's radar a few years ago.
Yeah, that's true. Man, still grinding it in there. He was on Shifley's radar a few years ago.
Listen,
that's a good
Winnipeg,
one.
there was quite a bit of smoke, and I don't know which one of the insiders said that the Jets and the Canadians had been talking about Evans and Armia. I mean, Armia is a former Jet. They certainly know what they've got in him. Like the wings for Winnipeg, the wings don't see. I mean, we often hear these rumors. Oh, they're trying to make a big splash with Mikko Rantanen. They're looking at Brock Besser. Like the Jets could do all that, but I don't understand how that changes their roster right now. I mean, right now, and listen, all love to Vlad Nemetsnikov and what he's done, and he got an extension for 2 more years. I don't think the plan has been to go into the playoffs with him as the number 2 center. And when you think about the Jets' second line, which is Vlad, which is Nikolai Ehlers, and Cole Perfetti, I mean, a bigger body. This is why I'm all horny for Brock Nelson. I mean, even though knowing that it would probably be a rental, this is a guy that I think has 50 points in 78 playoff games. He's 6'4", 205, 210. Like, he would significantly change the way that line looks. And I think it would allow even a little more space and a little more potential for Ehlers and Perfetti, who have really been clicking together. I mean, even all that stuff, the Jets are going to make a big run or trade Ehlers for Rantanen. Well, even if you do that, how does that really change your team that much? You're losing Ehlers, and he does so many things, creates so much. Maybe you've got a more high-end finisher, but I mean, is that guy going to barge in on the Connor, Scheifele, Velarde line that's been amongst, if not the best all season? So I really do think that the center position is where the Winnipeg Jets are going to be looking for. And I mean, it might not be a legit number 2C. I mean, it could be sort of a tweener, like a middle 6 guy.
What about Scott Lawton?
Well, Lawton,
I just know he's high up on that TSN trade board right now, right?
Yeah, so he is up there. And it's funny, we just had Philly in here on Saturday night. And I'll be honest, he didn't really stand out to me. He did do, the entire team went out to a steakhouse here, and they had a room. I don't know if you saw that picture that Lawton took of all the players. It was like the Last Supper. Everyone thinking that he was going to be dealt. It was some nice social media work by him. But the guy on Philly that I think the Jets are the most interested in, and we've certainly been talking about, is Ristolainen.
Yeah.
Ristolainen has 2 more years on his deal at 5.1. Right shot, leading the Philly power play. That obviously goes to Josh Morrissey here in Winnipeg. But I think a player with like that, with size, some skill, and term, would be what the Winnipeg Jets would be looking for. Now, like, if there was any way they could pry Ryan O'Reilly out of Nashville, they would do that. He would be the perfect guy to have between Adam Lowry and Mark Scheifele. The problem with that is that Barry Trotz has said that even though he doesn't have a no move, he's going to be treated as if he has a no move. And, I think he went there and signed in Nashville for a reason. As bad as this season has been, I do think that, he'll probably stay put. So if that's the case, I look at Brock Nelson as probably being the best available guy that could come in a perfect spot for him. Second line center with 2 really talented wingers that would really wrap up. Because, we talk so much about depth pieces, like the Frederics of the world. Like, that's one thing the Jets really don't need very much. Like, that bottom six has been so solid all year long. I mean, the Lowry line is as good as any. And, when you've got a player like Alex Iafallo, who's playing on the fourth line, Morgan Barron, who's got great speed, some big size, and Kupari, if Kupari had hands, he would be a star in this league because he has everything else. I mean, the guy's as fast as anyone in the National Hockey League. He's a great checker. He's a great penalty killer. He just has cinder blocks on the end of his arms, unfortunately. And, but for the role that he's playing in right now, he's really solid. And David Gustafson's able to come up and play. So I'm looking, for the Jets, we're looking at the defense, certainly an add-on D, and the names that we're hearing are Rasmus Ristolainen, Jamie Alexiak, Mario Ferraro. One of those three guys would be a nice add for Winnipeg. And then if they can make something happen with a center, Brock Nelson, I think, is the high option, certainly basically of what everyone's available. Although maybe Chevy pulls another rabbit out of his hat like he did in 2018 when Paul Stastny was on absolutely nobody's trade boards. And all of a sudden we get the news that Paul Stastny's been traded to the Winnipeg Jets. And that arguably was his best deadline deal. A guy that came in, fit in so well with the club, helped them win series, and so much so that he came back later on in his career.
All right, 780-218-9999, 780-218-9999. You can text us here on Edmonton Sports Talk. We'll get to the NHL slate here. A couple other things to get to. I know some people are asking, well, if he's going to be on LTIR until the regular season, why would you have somebody retain if the LTIR number wasn't going to matter anyway? I mean, let's see. It was Chris Johnson saying he could be on LTIR until the end of the regular season. So that's something to obviously keep tabs on as well. And your reaction to it, feel free to hit us up, 780-218-9999. Looking at some different places, LeChance and Warner are two top 10 prospects. Now, it's not a deep prospect pool for the Oilers, but they're both top 10 guys. I've seen LeChance ranked as high as like their fifth best prospect, depending on where you look. So they moved two top 10 prospects and a second round pick to bring in Frederic, which is not cheap, but they obviously identified him as a guy that they think can help them when he is healthy and ready to go. And we'll keep tabs on this. So you expect the Jets to move like in the next day or two on something, or is this going to be, let's see how the prices sort themselves out on Friday?
Yeah, knowing the way Cheveldayoff has operated, I mean, it could be any. I think it'll be when makes the most sense for him to jump. Like, he'll have talked to so many of these GMs. He'll have a pretty good idea about what the asking price is right now. And obviously that has been too high for them to make the move at the moment. You often see those periphery deals go down in that last hour because the guys wait them out and realize, okay, well, if I don't make this trade now, we're not making it. But considering a couple of the players that I think the Jets are targeting, it wouldn't surprise me if it happened before Friday. The funny thing about this whole thing with the Islanders is the Islanders, of course, got pumped last night 4-0 by the Rangers. They are now in a situation, if you look at the standings in the East, they're ahead of only Pittsburgh and Buffalo. Now they can say, oh, we're only 5 points back. They've got 5 teams above them before you get to that second spot. So they're as good as done. But the Jets could put an exclamation mark on that because they're in Long Island tonight to take on the Islanders, who are on the second end of a back-to-back. So I do think that if the Jets win tonight, I think it's even more clear. Pagnotta's reporting that the Islander brass are meeting on trade opportunities right now. So maybe they think it's clear after last night's game. It could be even more clear after tonight's game if the Jets win. So who knows? Maybe Brock Nelson could just join his team after the game tonight and move on to Philadelphia for the next one.
A quick note on this Frederic trade. The Bruins retained 50%, sent him to New Jersey. New Jersey retained 50%, so 25 of what was left. So the others are getting him at 25% of the cap hit. So he comes in, and like I said, without knowing what's going on with Kane, you have to try to get these guys the least amount of money that you possibly can, and that's what they did, and maybe that's why it cost them Warner and LaChance and a second-round pick.
Explain to me the up-to-date latest on Evander Kane.
Nobody knows, Huss. That's the up-to-date latest. Like, I guess the latest we would have had would have been Rashog and Dreger yesterday, and I believe I thought it was Elliot Friedman in 32 Thoughts used the word disagreement on Kane's status right now. Like, I just don't know why every other organization ever can just be like, this guy's going to return in the playoffs. And the others are sitting here 3 days before the deadline going, yeah, we're not sure. Like, he might be back. He might be back in April. So, I mean, the overall arching viewpoint, I think, in the city here by those who are trying to report on it is that Evander Kane wants to play some regular season games to get ready for the playoffs. And if he doesn't, the Oilers can add $5 million more in cap at the deadline. And I think they would want to do that. And they kind of are stuck in like no man's land right now, not knowing when Kane is going to return, which is not ideal for the hockey team right now.
Yeah, I guess. So, I mean, like, if it was up to them, they'd just mothball the guy.
They'd just say, hey, man, like, start. Like, he's not like taking line rushes or anything right now. Like, so he's going to be a little ways away. Playoffs start in like 5-6 weeks. He might get 3-4 games in maybe. I'm just like, what's like when you view it here in town, what's better for the team? Evander Kane getting 4 games in before the playoffs, or Evander Kane not playing until the playoffs and the Oilers being able to use that cap hit? You know, like for the long-term run in the playoffs, I think you'd probably rather add a couple more bodies. But no, if Evander Kane returns and can play and can make an impact, he does check off that top 6 box that we were talking about. Like, they need a top 6 winger. Well, Evander Kane can be that guy if he's on and healthy and focused for a couple of months.
I do wonder how this is monitored by the NHL because, I mean, certainly teams like Vegas, amongst others, have taken some heat for the way Tampa before that, the way they've handled LTIR. And I don't quote me on this, but I believe there's some level of independent, like it's just not the team doctors going, yeah, this guy can't play. We'll see you in game number 1 of the playoffs. As much as that's the way it sort of seemed to many of us watching what's happened around the league right now, because it's quite clear that if it was up to Edmonton right now, they would just do this. They would say, see you in the playoffs, Evander, and, you know, have a lot more flexibility to make deals. I'll give them credit, though. I mean, to get a player like Frederic and get 25% taken back both times.
Like 75% of this deal is retained.
It was 50 and then 50 again.
50 and then 50 of the remaining 50, right? So it'd be 75.
Now, I don't know anything about these prospects, so I guess I am somewhat speaking out of turn. But, you know, if one of these guys turns out to be a superstar, we'll look back and, you know, talk about Martin Erat for Philip Forsberg. But at the same time,
God, that trade still lives in infamy.
You know, considering the mess that the Oilers have sort of gotten themselves in with those signings and the no moves, you know, to get a player like Frederic, who absolutely will help the team win hockey games in the playoffs if he's able to play at that sort of a cost. I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And it seemed like the Oilers doing that. And that's a harder deal to probably pull off on deadline day when you're talking about the amount of salaries.
You want to get that retention taken care of.
They're going to be working on things like you can't have your capologist breaking down salary retentions, you know, with 15 minutes to go before the deadline. So, hey, they had to run at it. They took it. Frederic is a guy that I think was coveted by a lot of teams for what he could bring. So listen, I mean, as much as I was in a feud with him earlier for a very cowardly attack on poor David Gustafson, who'd never had a fight. He's a guy that I wouldn't mind.
That's what the Oilers need. Like the Oilers need a guy who are going to fight somebody who, you know, like they need that guy who gives no, it doesn't give two shits. You know, like that's what they need overall in the entire lineup, but definitely in the bottom 6. I like Mixed Doused over in the Nasty Chat. Hey, and if you're watching on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for the Lock Shop. We should be able to smash through 100 with everybody watching or listening right now. We're at 37, so hammer that thumbs up. He says, Erat for Forsberg at the time was terrible. and a head scratcher. It really was. Like, that was a top prospect in an organization for Marty Erad, who was like a okay second liner. Like, it never made sense to me.
Honestly, one of the all-time face plants by an NHL GM at the deadline. And, and as they say, all you can just bring that up right around time. Oh yeah, Erad for Forsberg. And, well, we know what Philip Forsberg has turned into for the Nashville Predators. And I think Erad was basically one and done with the Caps. They did nothing, and they've just had to watch this guy grow over the last number of years into a real star in the National Hockey League. Bronco Nick, Oilers have 15 forwards on the roster. 2 need to go down or moved. Will increase cap space at deadline as well. So that's
we'll see when Frederic's available and on the IR or whatever. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the thing is, with Savoy, like, it's not a big deal. If he goes down, he can be called back up on Saturday. And, because again, the rosters expand as long as you've got the cap space for it. Now, that might be the issue for Edmonton, because of where they are somewhat up against it. But I think, we need an EST, WST capologist.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Like, just someone that we can, explain this to us, because it does get pretty complicated when you're diving into the CBA on every intricity around the rosters and, of course, the deadline, when you're adding players, the changes at the deadline, what that means afterwards going into the playoffs. And then, of course, playoffs, as we know, there is no salary cap. So, big crowd on YouTube, gang. It's like, if you like the trade, hit that thumbs up. If you don't like the trade, hit that thumbs up.
Thumbs up anyway. Hit the thumbs up anyway.
Let your voice be heard.
We're gonna take a look at the NHL slate. We'll recap last night. Some other roster news moving around North American sports. The New York Jets have released wide receiver Davante Adams. So we were talking about Adams yesterday. Is he going to go with Rodgers somewhere? Oh, well, you're probably going to have to trade for him. That's not the case anymore. The Jets are releasing wide receiver Davante Adams. How old is Adams? Like, how much does this dude have left in the tank?
Jeez, off the top of my head, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I got it. What is it? What's the guess?
Is 33.
So close. 32, but turns 33 in December. So he'll be turning 33 during the season. I was
going to say 34. I'm like, no, I think it's a little too old. And the other thing, and I know there's a lot of people around here that are interested in this, it sounds like the Vikes are not going to franchise Sam Darnold.
I saw that, yeah.
Now, I mean, the quarterback tag is so massive. I kind of get it, and I think there might be a path to bring Sam back at a lower number that's not the franchise tag. I mean, maybe even give him a more modest number on a 2 or a 3-year deal and then potentially trade him afterwards.
Franchise tag is $39.6 million. For a quarterback
so, I mean,
this
if
year.
You're going to drop 40 sheets on Sam, knowing that the plan is for JJ McCarthy to play, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. Although there is still concern that McCarthy, coming back from this injury, is going to miss the spring OTAs. Like, we don't know when he's actually going to be able to play. So I do think it's important for the Vikings to have a good insurance plan outside of JJ. And Sam Darnold would absolutely be that guy. He's the perfect guy, frankly, and that's part of the reason why he came in and did so well last year. But it's a little different when you're on a 1-year, $10 million deal than when you've got the options that Sam is going to have coming in free agency. But there'll be a veteran quarterback in and around. I mean, obviously, we talked to Aaron Rodgers, and I know we were talking yesterday about, the Giants, about the Raiders. Wouldn't it just be hilarious if Rodgers literally followed the exact path of Brett Favre, going from the Packers to the Jets and then finishing up back in the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings against the Packers? Be here for it. And, I think that if Rodgers I don't think he's going anywhere knowing that he's about to be usurped by a rookie quarterback, though. And that's just doesn't seem like he'd be down with that. Ask Jordan Love. So I think it's probably more like the Raiders or the Giants still, despite the opening there.
All right, it's 11:36. We'll have more full-blown reaction to the Frederic trade on two guys and a goalie. Obviously, we'll keep tabs on anything else that moves around the National Hockey League today. But myself, Cass, Gager, will dive into the Frederic trade. We'll get the guys' thoughts on all of it. More of your thoughts on two guys and the goalie today as well. And keep it going in the chat. I mean, if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart, you just want to get in on a good chat with Oilers fans about this deal, slide on over in there and chime in on the conversation there. You can keep that going as well. Huss, last night, interesting night in the National Hockey League. The Leafs lose at home to the Sharks. Panthers Lightning have a classic Florida Tampa game, 2-1. Florida ends up winning there. Shesterkin has the shutout. Rangers back-to-back 4-0 wins. The Habs get by the Sabres. Washington shout out OV for cashing that over 3.5 shot prop in the first period. My God, that was beautiful. Didn't score, but the Caps do beat the Sens 5-4. And then Spencer Knight in his Blackhawks debut stops 41 of 42 and hands the Kings another loss.
I had to laugh when I saw this because I wasn't watching this games, but I went in and I was checking scores. And then the second period was 4-1 Blackhawks. And do you remember yesterday when we were going through the lines, I said, hey, you know what? This is weird, but they've mixed this up. Like normally they would have the favorite being the minus 2.5.
Yeah.
And for the puck line was Blackhawks minus 2.5 and Kings plus 2.5. And the Kings number was like minus 1429. And the Blackhawks was plus 800. Well, if someone had maybe they were mixed up or whatever and had bet that, they would have won because the Blackhawks actually covered the 2.5 goal puck line. Spencer Knight made 41 saves. Listen, I don't have any skin in the game for the Blackhawks. They're in our division. I'm more than happy with them sucking. But that team and that organization, that fan base has been through a lot. They get Bedard. We haven't seen any forward progress. That game last night, I think, was enough to give a lot of people hope that, you know what, you see what Connor Hellebuck's done in Winnipeg. I mean, if you have a world-class all-star goaltender, and Knights has been thought to be that guy from the second he was drafted in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. Took a little longer. I mean, I think it was foolish for them to throw him in as a 19-year-old. That never seems to work in the NHL. Look at Devin Levi with Buffalo as well. I mean, goalies need more time to get ready. They got to play in the American Hockey League a little bit. He seems ready to be a full-fledged number one right now. And that performance in his debut for the Blackhawks, exactly what that organization needed. Get a little bit of the toxicity of the frustrated Seth Jones out of the building and bring in a young guy that can be part of a cornerstone of your franchise along with Bedard moving forward. So hell of a start for Spencer Knight. That the Sharks Leaf game, I wasn't as mad about it because the early games didn't go our way. And two big comebacks. Like the Caps were up 2-0. And 3-1 after two periods. Credit to the Senators for battling back. You got to feel bad, though, you didn't get that extra point. Every point so crucial when it comes to Ottawa right now. And, man, when I saw that first period of the Habs-Sabres game, I'm like, wow, Buffalo has just straight up quit. Ugly. Credit to them. They battled back. They got that thing to overtime with 3 unanswered in the second and third and made it happen. But man, the game that I did check out last night, Lightning Panthers, is like I'm actually cheering for the Leafs to win the division. And listen, I am anything but a fan of Toronto because, man, a Lightning Panthers first round series would be so damn good. And if the Leafs, the best case scenario would be like, I want Leafs Ottawa. Like Ottawa back in the playoffs and playing against Toronto would be, I mean, if you have no skin in the game, like that would be a series you'd be tuning into. See, and Brady Tkachuk looks ready for the playoffs. We saw what he did in the Four Nations. You see him throw down with Tom Wilson last night?
Yeah, I know.
I was wondering about that. Tom in pregame warm-up, we go, hey, Yeah, you were lucky. I wasn't there in Boston, but I'm here tonight. We'll see you out there. And hey, credit to Tkachuk. He threw down with him, did very well against him. I've got a lot of time for both of those guys. Exactly what you would want to have on your team heading into a playoffs. But those guys are not a dime a dozen. And that's why Wilson will probably be a capital for his entire career. And if Ottawa can keep him, Brady Tkachuk will be the same way, although he didn't look too pleased with the anthem last night in Ottawa when they were booing the hell out of it.
Hey, one more quick note on the National Hockey League, and then we will get to the slate tonight. A couple of things. First of all, doesn't sign text guy texts in and says, guys, this makes me want to keep Kane even more. Frederic and Kane together on a line. And you mentioned Corey Perry. Like, come playoff time, if you had Frederic with Evander Kane on his left side and Perry on his right side, that could be a pain in the ass line that this team hasn't had in a little while. I don't mind that.
That's a 10 out of 10 on the pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, are you kidding?
That could be.
And the thing is, like, Kane, like, who knows what Kane is going to be like when he comes back? But I mean, we all know that if Evander Kane is healthy, Evander Kane is an absolute difference maker in these sort of games. And listen, I know he's a little older right now, and there's the law of diminishing returns. But both he and Corey Perry still have an incredible edge to their game. And a guy like Frederic might play a couple inches taller playing with those guys right now, and that might be kind of a perfect storm. Wow, that's not a if I'm an NHL player and I'm looking at those three going up against me, you know it's going to be a long night. I'll tell you that much.
All right, then the other note, Pierre LeBrun today saying that the Kraken are willing to eat 50% on Brandon Tanev's $3.5 million. Tanev be? I mean, Winnipeg doesn't need that type of guy, do they? They have those guys, don't they?
They do, but again, listen, if you're interested in winning a Stanley Cup, we all know that you need to be kind of 12, 15 deep at forward. Like, as I said, I don't really think that the periphery and the bottom six is really where the Jets need to be focusing on. But I'd be surprised that they didn't add a player that could be in the lineup, that might not be in the lineup. Tanev would be that guy. They love Tanev. The fans absolutely love Tanev. I mean, that's where he started in the National Hockey League. And listen, he played so well that he ended up getting that 7-year contract from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I think we were all stunned that he was able to get, but it was one of those good for him. And there's no way the Jets were going to be able to, at that point, pay him $3.5 million for 7 years. So he certainly earned it. He's been a fan favorite everywhere he's gone. Incredible skater, tenacious, tough, not particularly big, but a guy that you'd go to war with in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up coming here, but I don't think that would be anywhere close to the move that the Jets are really looking for to put them over the top. But again, if you're looking at making a long run, there might be a couple more additions that, might not play a big role early on, but as the war of attrition of the Stanley Cup playoffs goes, might get in there a little bit more. We love Tanev, though, in the peg.
10-game slate tonight in the National Hockey League. Let me lay out some starting goaltenders for you. We'll build a little 3-game parlay here. The EST parlay is already up. That thing is locked and loaded. It is McDavid. He's due for a 2-point game. So we got McDavid over 1.5 points, Draisaitl goal, Bouchard assist, Oilers in regulation tonight against the Ducks, plus 500. Elsewhere around the league, Samuel Ersson will start for the Philadelphia Flyers. Dustin Wolf likely for the Flames. Jonas Johansson for Tampa Bay, unconfirmed at this point. Merzlikins will go for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Vanecek and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, both unconfirmed for the Sharks and Sabres, playing on the second half of a back-to-back. Freddie Anderson listed as likely for the Hurricanes. Alex Lyon will go for the Detroit Red Wings. Jeremy Swayman confirmed for the Bruins tonight at home against an unconfirmed UC Saros and the Nashville Predators. Hellebuck listed as likely for the Jets. Islanders, Sorokin unconfirmed at this point. Obviously, they went at it last night with the Rangers, so a second half of a back-to-back there for the Islanders. Casey DeSmith will get the start for the Stars. Markstrom confirmed to go for the Devils. Wedgwood will start for Colorado. Nedeljkovic unconfirmed at this point for the Penguins. The Oilers will run it back with Calvin Pickard, who was outstanding against Carolina on Saturday. Dostal's unconfirmed. If anybody knows who the Ducks are going to be rolling with tonight, if it's popped up anywhere else, fire that into the text or the chat. And then Joey Decord listed as likely for the Kraken tonight. Gustafsson unconfirmed at this point for the Wild. So Hussa, pretty decent 10-game Tuesday board here. What are we looking at? Who do you like? What jumps off the page?
I hear Pickard's going again. Is Pickard the new number one in Edmonton?
Well,
is he the guy?
If he plays well tonight and wins, it'll be a conversation tomorrow morning on the show for sure.
It's interesting that Sorokin is sort of unconfirmed for the Islanders. He played last night, gave up 3. He had like an .880 save percentage. I mean, not a terrible game or whatever, but Hellebuck's going to be good to go in this one. And he only let in the 1 goal on Saturday night, and then that beautiful play by Mitchkov in the shootout. Jets weren't able to beat that monster Fedotov. That guy looks 7 feet tall.
He's a giant. That guy's ridiculous. He's awkwardly, hilariously looking between the pipes. Like,
no doubt. Do we know is Jack Hughes missing tonight's game?
I think he's out.
Yeah, they don't have
into the boards pretty good in that game against Vegas.
Yeah, he's just out. Yeah, that was a tough way to finish up. Well, I think I'll start it off with the Dallas Stars. On this Jets run, they went 10-0 in 10 games and only made up 3 points on the Dallas Stars because the Stars were 8-1-1. Now they lost to Columbus. They've come back with a couple wins. I mean, to me, Dallas, it's funny because we're talking about the West, that number 1 seed, the advantage of playing Vancouver, Calgary, St. Louis, whoever comes in that spot as opposed to the top 7. It's been Dallas that's pushing the most when it comes to Winnipeg. Ironically, their division rival. But this is going to be tough for the Devils to go into Dallas and beat the Stars without Jack Hughes. So minus 164, I think the number's pretty fair. I think that's probably one that I'll start off right away. This Lightning Blue Jackets game is interesting. Normally, I think you'd think, okay, Lightning, they just played a really tough game last night against Florida. They had won 8 in a row, and the Blue Jackets are feeling it right now. I mean, that plus 140 is probably a little tough to put on the parlay, but that's a game that I'll probably be paying attention to when they drop the puck, at least for a half an hour before the Jets and Islanders get going. What do you think about this Flames-Flyers game right now? Because, again, Philly's kind of playing in next-year territory, but I can tell you, they certainly worked their asses off in that game Saturday night against Winnipeg. And Calgary is in the midst of this. I mean, they're basically playing playoff games each and every day right now. They're tied with Vancouver. Look at that. I didn't realize that. 60 games each, 65 points each. They've got 1 point and 2 games in hand on St. Louis. They've got 2 points and 1 game in hand on Utah. I mean, Calgary right now, under 500 on the road. What's Philly done at home? Philly's, 2 games above 500. I mean, this really does feel like a bit of a toss-up right now. But this is a game kind of that Calgary has to have if they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah, the thing with Calgary is that they can't score goals. Like, they haven't scored goals in their last 10 games. They haven't scored more than 3 goals once, and in their last 3 games, they've lost 3-0, 3-0, 2-1. So Calgary has 1 goal in their last 3 games of this road trip right now. It started with a win over Washington, but they've lost to Tampa, they lost to Florida, they lost to Carolina. Now that is not Philadelphia. So Philadelphia on the other side has won 4 of 5 and has points in 5 in a row after a little slide themselves. So, when you first brought it up, I did think, I think I'd probably be willing to back Calgary here at plus 125. But you look at their offense just completely drying up recently, and Philly might be a good team to get that going against. But I don't necessarily love it.
Yeah, it might be tough to put on the parlay. Although listen, teams don't just go forever without scoring goals. They're going to come. And hey, this is Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost revenge game. They, of course, had that trade. Was it about a month ago or so?
Good point.
Those guys coming back to Philly. playing. I mean, I think
you like it, don't you? You like the Flames here quite a bit, don't you? I'm not going to be able to get you off the Flames.
The more I think about it, I think I will. Put it this way. I'm not going on Philly. If you wanted to go with the Flames at plus 125, I would be here for it.
Because we got Dallas on here already, right? We got Dallas.
Yeah,
if we go
like
Calgary,
Dallas.
It's plus 262. What else are we looking at?
Well, if we put Calgary in as an underdog, then I think we can look at, like, if we went with Tampa, that would take it to plus 483. The Jets would put it to plus 454, although I usually like to keep the Jets off of the partner parlay. Even the Oilers at home, the Oilers would put it to 371. Avalanche against Pittsburgh. Listen, I think Dallas and Colorado are pretty safe bets.
Yeah.
I mean, this basically ends up like we're juicing up.
Yeah,
Plus 125
with Calgary in there, buddy, we can get Colorado in there, right?
Yeah, as I say, it's plus 392.
Yeah.
So with the boost, we're probably looking at maybe close to plus 450.
I'd be okay with that. I think it's worth taking maybe a little bit of risk with Calgary to get Dallas and Colorado into this parlay.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, we could do, if we wanted to make it, you could do a 4-gamer. I'm not trusting the Buffalo Sabres after back-to-backs. Carolina and Detroit, that's a big game for the Red Wings, though. I mean, you do have to worry about these teams like Calgary, like Detroit, like Columbus, that have these games have so much more meaning.
They're getting to gotta have a territory, buddy.
Than
right?
the teams that they are playing. And then, of course, Edmonton back at home. First game home after a big, long road trip. Much like we saw the Leafs last night losing extras to the Sharks. I think putting Edmonton on it at minus 333, I'm not sure the juice is worth the squeeze. So, yeah, so why don't we do that? I mean, we lock it in with Calgary, Dallas, and Colorado, plus 392 before the boost. And we put that in, and once Evdog and Jakey take care of it, we'll be plus 4 something, and can get that in excess of 4-1.
What's on WST today, man?
What is on WST? I mean, we're going to continue getting ready we'll talk about this Frederic deal and everything else that's happening around the league. Plenty of looks at the New York Islanders, the team the Jets will be playing tonight. Sounds like Dylan Sandberg's going to be out due to a family matter. They expect him back for the game on Thursday night, which means Hayden Fleury is in. And we've got Stephen Ellis, actually, from DFO is going to come by. We're going to talk about some of the prospects that may have been traded. And we'll certainly, actually, for Oiler fans, if any of you guys want to jump on over for our program, we'll certainly be asking Stephen about the quality of players the Oilers had to give up to acquire Trent Frederic with all of that money. Held out. Jeff Hamilton's going to jump on. We got a big little feature on the big volleyball Canada West volleyball provincials, Final Four that's coming up.
Canada West Final Four
jumping on the program. So it should be a good one. And then tomorrow, show 1000 of WST. It's going to be a big one, Dusty. We've got some.
Congratulations, buddy.
We got some good guests lined up. It's going to be a fun one. And then, of course, we won't have our regular lock shop on Friday.
We'll have extra deadline coverage everywhere.
On both of our channels, we'll be going deep. We're going to be starting at 11 a.m. Winnipeg time. So I guess 10 a.m. Edmonton time, and taking it right through the deadline, occupying ourselves when nothing is happening, bunch of guests, all that sort of fun stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun on WST today, and then tomorrow our big show for 1000.
That's awesome. I love it. We'll talk about that a little bit more on Lock Shop tomorrow for sure as well. 2 guys and a goalie coming up right away. The Edmonton Oilers have acquired Trent Frederic. We are going to continue this conversation with former NHLers Matt Cassidy and Joaquin Gage. Make sure you're sticking around for that one. You can hammer the thumbs up. We are 4 away from changing 100 here on the Lock Shop today, so please do that. And turn on autoplay. If autoplay is not yet on for you, if you turn on autoplay on YouTube, it'll take you right on over to 2 guys and a goalie, which will be starting up momentarily. And if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com, just keep listening. 2 guys right around high noon today. The EST parlay is up as well. You can find that exclusive page. Thank you very much for joining us on the Lock Shop today. Best of luck tonight, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
4 more likes.